friends, greetings to all of you. I hope you are studying well. In the previous video, we have seen chapter number 5, right? One of the lengthiest chapters, and now almost 50% of the ISCA syllabus has been covered. So now let us go to chapter number 6, which deals with auditing of information system. If you have seen my weightage of ISCA chapters, the video on the weightage of marks for each of the chapter, you can find in the playlist. That video showcases how much of weightage the each chapter is having in the examination. So we all feel that chapter 1 or chapter 3 or chapter 5 being lengthy one are the important one, or chapter 2 being important one is the chapter 2 being easy one is the important one. But if we compare and see that, we will understand that it is the chapter number 6 that has consistent weightage in all the terms. So this chapter, every time it hits the eye of 20 marks. Below that, I didn't find it going below that. So 16 to 20 marks is a must for this chapter, because the reason is very simple. We are CA students, right? We are pursuing chartered accountancy course. So what is our core specialization? Where do we go? We do always the audit. So that is the one thing which our heart never changes in spite of many changes that comes in the environment, right? Auditing is the basic thing. Despite many changes in the technology happens, we are specialized in audit. So here the chapter deals with auditing of information system. So of course you may say, ma'am, even CA people are specialized in tax, FEMA, legal. Yeah, okay, but generally the term CA is the term auditing represents CA, right? Okay, so since we have this audit thing being the core of our profession, this chapter ICA always gives an importance. Even this is the last attempt, this chapter will retain its importance there. And even if you see, even the length wise also, the chapter is at medium length, not that big as chapter number 5. Okay, so what we do, we generally start with the MCQs, okay, and then in between we come to the last day revision notes, we see some important topics, and then we again go back to the MCQs. In that manner we complete the entire chapter. So this is going to be a chapter number 6, and you have to revise the practice manual. Without revising that, only listening to the video is not going to help you in preparation. So you have to listen to the video, study from the practice manual also, and write at least 2 answers a day. So writing 2 answers a day will gives you a lot of courage in attempting the paper, because if it's in your head and not in, and your hand does not coordinate with your head, you're not able to start writing. Your hand gets pain when you're writing it, so there is no use of studying this much. So start writing. See and write is okay. In exam we can't see, right? We should write without seeing. So see the answers and write here, and once you get a grip of the subject, then you can start writing without seeing also. So saying all these things, now let's get started. Okay, first bit. So my series here is 251. So 251 to 300 is a 50 MCQs on this chapter number 6. First one, the performance of evidence collection and understanding of the reliability of controls involves issues like, so you can say there is a issues involved in evidence collection because there is a change in the method of auditing. What we do now, we are mostly doing everything electronic mode, not in the paper based mode. Therefore, the performance of evidence collection and understanding of the reliability of controls involves issues like, what they involves absence of input document. Exactly, there is no input, physical input to see for us. Non-availability of audit trail, who started the transaction, who is coordinating it, who is ending. There is no trail of such sort. Lack of availability of the printout, so we don't have proper printer. We must rely on what the e-invoice or e-document the system provides us. So all these 4 causes a problem in the performance of evidence collection and understanding the reliability of controls. Okay, then the IS audit involves the following. What does IS audit involve? The assessment of internal controls within which the IS environment to assure validity, reliability, and security of information and information system. Assessment of the efficiency and effectiveness of the IS environment. Yes, the audit involves all these 2. Involves assessment of the internal controls within the information system environment and assessment of the efficiency of the information system environment. So both these things are covered in the information system audit. Then 4 objectives of the IS audit. What are the objectives of IS audit? So IS audit means information system auditing. What do we see in general? Any auditing we see as a safeguarding objective, same as here. Then here, because the data forms backbone of the information system, we have data integrity objective, means how well the data is preserved, how you can say how authentic the data is. Then system efficiency objective, because systems are the one which functions in the information system thing, so how effectively they're doing and how efficiently they're working. So system efficiency, system effectiveness, all the four are covered in the information system audit. Then comes the fourth one: which of the following is not a skill set of IS auditor? So you can see a general, for if you let you be an information system auditor or you be a statutory auditor, any auditor you must have these qualification. The only thing that you require specialization and certificates depending upon the area that you choose to audit. So what are in the above four, sorry, in the below four, which is not a skill set of IS auditor? Possess the requisite professional technical qualification and certification, medical knowledge, no knowledge of the IT strategy, policy and procedural control, good knowledge of professional standards and best practice of IT control and security. So everything related to IT he must have. He need not have medical knowledge. Like suppose you can say, ma'am, anybody is trying to clean the IT systems, the computers, he got a shock. So auditor can't deal them. There will be a first aid kit or other people to take care of that person, right? So he need not have medical knowledge for auditing the information system. Okay, then what are the 6 categories of IS audit? Generally, let us when we study the last day division, you will get to know all the side headings and the content. But as of now, let us see if you don't know what will be the answer. What is generally we say, ma'am, is easily we can say, let us go B, C, and D. Of course, you can take that a shortcut, but let us understand. So 6 categories means what are the different classifications or different varieties of IS audit? We have systems and application audit, system development audit, okay, information processing facility. So we need to see how and where the information is being processed. That audit is also done. Then management of IT and enterprise architecture. So in the IS audit we see it is one of the audit in which we see if the IT and enterprise architecture is suitable to the enterprise. Architecture means structure in which the information is flown in the organization. So how is it properly built according to the standards? Then telecommunication, internet and intranet and extranet also. So how these facilities are being available in the organization. So these, for example, you can say intranet, it is available for the between the employees and the vendors of the organization. But extranet, that is the internet, it is available for everybody. So in the intranet thing, do they have proper protocols? Do they have proper firewalls? Are they allowing those vendors who have login ID, who is using, from which IP address they are using, etc. These things comes there. So 6 categories of IS audit include all the B, C and D. Okay, then which of the following is not a best auditing practice? Why I am saying lot of not questions is that because in exam mostly he focuses on the not based questions. Therefore in the last few chapters we have seen the positive questions, like which of the following is the characteristic of system development, those things. So when you know what is the characteristic, then you can answer what is not a characteristic. But in chapter number 6 mostly there are negative based questions. So if you know that, then automatically you can answer any opposite question asked in the examination. Okay, which of the following is not a best auditing practice? ISCA is a best auditing practice. Okay, ISO 27001 is also one of the IT regulating practices. Then information technology infrastructure library is also a best auditing practice. But COBIT 5 is not a practice. Mind people, it is COBIT 5 is a framework. It's a framework for system implementation, but it is never an auditing practice. Therefore COBIT 5 is the odd man out. Okay, Dash is a set of practices for IT service management that focuses on aligning the IT service with the needs of the business. So we can now, I think you have got the answer. It is saying the set of practice of IT service management aligning the IT service with the needs of the business. ISCA is a standard. Okay, ISCA is a regulating body which has standards and guidelines for implementing the IT. Then ISO 27001 is also a standard for seeing the best practices for IT implementation. COBIT 5 is a framework for implementing the IT. But the question is that the set of practices for IT service management. So the IT service management, we need to have a set of protocols which is focusing on IT service and aligning the IT service with the needs of the business. That is done by ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Okay, then C is the answer for 257. Then 258, dash occurs throughout the audit as an iterative process. So what happens in the iterative process? So you can say in the auditing thing generally is as a recurring process, planning will always happen. Why? I will say why. See, when you plan an audit, you will have a basic understanding of the previous year's experiences. You will go through the documents. If you are the first auditor, recurring audit also, every time you may get a new case or a new situation to deal, which you again plan for it. So planning is a continuous activity that happens in the audit. But survey is not done by auditing. Analysis is done after the reporting is done. Okay, and reporting is done once audit is done. So in audit, everything always there is in an iterative continuous form. We have planning in place. Then dash is the risk that could occur in an audit area and which could be material individually or in combination of other errors which will not be prevented or detected or corrected on timely basis by internal control systems. So mainly he's asking the definition of the controls. Okay, so he's asking the definition of risk, different type of risk like inherent risk, control risk and reduction risk. So among all this is which could occur in audit, that could be material individually or both. So individually or combination with other errors, it is a material risk that could occur and it cannot be prevented or directed or corrected by internal control system. So your internal control is failing in directing, preventing and correcting it. So what kind of risk is there? It is control risk. Inherent risk is something which is inbuilt in the system. Okay, or you can take some measures to avoid it. Reduction risk is something which you can which the internal control system can detect and you can take steps to prevent after detection. But control risk is something which the internal control system cannot prevent, cannot detect, can correct also on timely basis. After the incident occur, then you will come to know such thing weakness is there in the system. So control risk is the answer for this 259 bit. Then audit routines that flag suspicious transactions. So suspicious transactions, they are flagged. Whenever the flagging thing comes, we are hooking, we are raising our hooks. ITF, we'll just see in the LDR what is the difference between ITF, system review, system control audit review file and continuous interval simulation. We'll just see differences just now. But as of now, whenever the routine audit routines, when there is some suspicious transaction is occurring, we will use the system called as audit hooks. This is one of the checking, verifying or auditing techniques, auditing tools that will help you to find out the suspicious transaction. Okay, let's once revise few of the topics and then come back here. Okay, so first the question comes in the chapter auditing of information system. Why there is a need for the audit of information system? The need is because the following are the reasons why we need the audit of the information system. First thing is organizational cost of data loss, incorrect decision making, cost of computer abuse, value of computer hardware, software and personnel, high cost of computer error, maintenance of privacy, controlled evaluation of the computer use, information system auditing, asset safeguarding objective, data integrity objective, system efficiency objective and system effectiveness objective. So these are the objectives and the reasons why the base of which we need the audit of information system to be done. Okay, then what is the effect of the computer's internal audit? Internal audit means the thing which happens, you design internally for the organization, right? So what is the effect of computers on that? The first thing, there's change in evidence collection, means the way in which you collect the evidence, like having the physical data, all these things are not available now. So what is the issue? Because of change in evidence collection, there is an issue regarding data retention and storage. So every data can be stored in the system main part, it will be transferred to any other external storage devices. So that is the data retention and storage is the one of the issues facing change in evidence collection. Then absence of input documents, you don't have proper physical documents with us, non-availability of audit trail and lack of availability of output, audit evidence and legal issues. So these are the challenges or issues faced due to the change in evidence collection in the internal audit. Then change in evidence evaluation. So how do you evaluate the evidence? Also changing now. So because we need to follow audit trail, we need to see the controls available in the organization and the weakness in the system. Depending upon that, we can evaluate how worthy is the evidence that we got. So what are the major issues in evidence evaluation? We have the system generated transaction. We must know if system is generated properly. If software is coded wrong, the system will generate wrong transactions there. Then automate transaction processing. Like once, for example, if there is an asset in the organization and the system automatically calculates depreciation, takes it into profit and loss account and then debits it from the asset account, and reduces it from the asset account, it's crediting. Okay, so when this thing happens, is the system properly doing it? Are there proper rates for that? Those we need to take care of. And generation of systematic errors. So if there are any errors generated by the system, are we able to identify it? So depending upon these, we can then understand if we can evaluate if the evidence received is proper or not. So the effect of internal audit, the effect of computers on the internal audit is on the change in evidence collection and change in evidence evaluation. Okay, I hope you are able to recollect the MCQs that we just discussed. Okay, the performance of evidence collection and understanding the reliability of control we just saw, right? What are the issues faced? Data retention and storage, absence of input documents, non-availability of audit trail, lack of availability of printed output, audit evidence and legal issues. Then for the evidence thing, we have system generated transaction, automated transaction processing and systematic errors. Okay, Then the the audit of information system environment may include it can include assessment of internal controls within the IS environment, of course, and it also includes assessment of efficiency and effectiveness of the information system. These two, assessment of internal controls and assessment of the efficiency and effectiveness of the systems, are covered in the information system audit. And it also what are the other major objectives? What are the, you can say, what are the main objectives? What does it cover? It includes, what does it, IS audit includes both assessment of internal controls within the IS environment, assessment of efficiency and effectiveness of the information system environment. Okay, then what are the objectives? Objectives of information system audit is asset safeguarding objective, data integrity objective, system efficiency objective, and system effectiveness objectives. These are the four objectives of the information system audit. It includes two aspects and objectives are four, so don't get confused in this matter. Okay, then what are the functions of IS auditor? The functions of IS auditor is to review the risk related to the IT system and processes, right? So he has to see if the systems are not doing the following. What he has to see? He has to see that it does not have inadequate information security control. So what does the auditor must see? The auditor must see that the risk related to IT system does not exist. What are the risks that he has to take care of? He has to see that the inadequate information security control is not there. He has to see that what are the risks that he has to take care of? He has to see the risks which he has to focus are inadequate information security control, like the security control for the information is very less, so he has to give specific focus on that, if it is adequate or not. Then inefficient use of resource, he has to see if the IT resources are properly utilized. Can it be like using cloud computing, grid computing? Can we do something better? Then is a poor governance. How is the governance matter of the IT structure? Ineffective IT strategy. IT strategy includes buying, selling of the IT equipments, or implementation, updation, maintenance. So are they effective or ineffective? Then also includes policies and practices and IT related frauds. So IT auditor must take care of all these functions of the IT in the IT audit. Then skill set of IS auditor. What are the skills that IS auditor must have? So this generally comes as a 4 marks answer. At least alternative attempts he asks. Either he will say that you are applying for a post of IS auditor, what skills you must say, or they may say that ABC Limited is looking for an IS auditor, you have requisite skills, present your application to them. Then when they say like that, don't write your resume, write these points there. Okay, the set of skills that is generally expected to be with the IS auditor are as follows. What does he need to have? You must have sound knowledge of the business operation. Means what does the business do? Suppose it's into exporting, so what does it export from? Where does it get the raw material? How many days the raw material takes to come? What is the packing process, etc.? These he must have the operation flow, to whom they're paying the taxes, okay, who is exempted, who is taxable. So all these things, like how the wherever everything IT is involved, so everything goes through the information system only. So he must have a good sound knowledge of the business operation practices and compliance requirement. Compliance is very much, because without compliance the business won't work. So he must know who must comply what. Then should possess a requisite professional technical qualification certification like DISA, etc. Then a good understanding of the information risk and control, a knowledge of the IT strategy, policy and procedural control. Then ability to understand technical and manual control relating to the business continuity. Then good knowledge of professional standards and best practices of the IT control and security. So he must have these 6 skill set to be an IS auditor. Then what are the different categories of IS auditing? We just saw in the one of the first bits in the MCQ, right? We have the different categories of IS auditor: systems and application. Okay, then we see information processing facilities, then system development audit, then management of IT and enterprise architecture, and finally we have telecommunication, internet and extranet. These all 5 points I've discussed earlier. Okay, then what are the steps in information system audit? This is also one of the important questions for 4 marks. So there are totally 6 steps in the information system audit. They are scoping and pre-audit survey, planning and preparation, field work, analysis, reporting and closure. Okay, so what are the steps in information system audit? Total there are 6 steps. There are scoping and pre-audit survey, in which we first do to find out what is the scope, and based upon the scope definition we agree with the management what includes to be done, what need not to be done. Then comes planning and preparation. Planning includes the detailed level of things to be done and the audit work to be planned, and also risk assessment involves in that. Then field work includes the evidence collection, interviewing the staff, the management and reviewing the required documents. Analysis after the field work is done, depending upon the results of the field work we go into the analysis stage, where we try to analyze the evidence gathered and try to make an answer out of it. Then reporting. Reporting to the management is done after the analysis with the evidence gathered, and then finally will be the closure of the audit. Audit closure involves preparing future notes for the future audit and follow up with the management for completing the actions to be taken. So totally there are six steps in the information system audit, being scoping and pre-audit survey, planning and preparation, field work, analysis, reporting and closure. Okay, then uh, this is the steps which you have seen for the information system audit. But what are the best audit practices, standards which generally the uh, companies follow? Okay, which are advised to be followed. First, one of the best standard being ISACA. ISACA being Information System Audit and Control Association. Generally, these definitions you will find in the 7th question, where you will be given a term to define and write. So most probably advised to write for 4 points or at least a paragraph having relevant content in that. Okay, so what is ISACA? Information System Control and Information System Audit and Control Association. So this association provides auditing standards, auditing guidelines and auditing procedure which can be followed for conducting the audit of the information systems. So it has all around 16 auditing standards, 39 guidelines and 11 procedures. And also we have COBIT, this control objective for information and related technology. So COBIT, to know more about COBIT you have to see the chapter number 1 video. So COBIT framework is for conducting good business practice related to information technology, which we know, we have read in depth in chapter number 1. This is about ISACA. Then we have ISO 27001. This is ISO 27001 is also the international best practice for the information security management system. So this standard helps the companies to understand, organize information security of any kind in the organization, and also it enables the organization to get certified, which means that an independent certification body will confirm that the organization is having required information security standards in place and have been properly implemented. So this is dealt by ISO 27001. Then also the other good practices being internal audit standards given by the Institute of Internal Auditors. They have guidelines called as Global Technology Audit Guide, which will give the particular things to be followed to check if the organization has required technology practices in place. Then comes the standards on internal audit issued by our institute. So we have various standards which prescribe what needs to be followed in auditing of the information system. Like you have to again go to your audit paper to see those. Then comes the another important, you can say, 4 marks question for the information technology infrastructure library. So this is a set of practices for the IT service management that it focuses on what? It focuses on aligning the IT service with the needs of the business. So it is it is published in 5 core publications which focuses on all the entire life cycle stage of the information system. Then it prescribes the procedures, tasks and checklist which is general for every organization, you can say not specific, and can be customized, and we need a minimum level of competency to understand this procedures in order to form a checklist to know if the proper IT implementation is done in the organization. Okay, I think this we have covered one MCQ showing infrastructure library. If you go through and see here dash is a set of practices for IT service management that focuses on aligning IT service with the needs of the business. So the needs are aligned with the requirement. That is information technology infrastructure library it is a set of practice which does this kind of alignment thing. Okay, let us continue our MCQ again. Capability in a software where it can list all the transactions in excess of rupees 25,000 can be classified as a dash technique. So what software technique is used for classification of a transaction after a particular limit? Okay, so what is that software called? It's called as the audit hook. So it is raising the flags there which based upon a particular criteria it lists out the transactions and then sees. So if we see down, just a minute. Yeah, if you see here the different of audit tools, we just have 4 questions with the audit tools. First thing being snapshot, integrated test facility, system control audit review file, and then continuous intermittent simulations. So we have just seen audit. There's one more thing called audit hooks. So what is the audit hooks there? There is a routine. There are the audit routines that will flag suspicious transactions. So whenever the transaction goes into a system and we and these audit hooks are placed maintaining certain criteria in that once the transactions are above or below the specified criteria, the flags gets highlighted to the auditor showing the audit routines which will which will show the transactions which are not meeting the criteria there. Okay, so these are the audit hooks this for this question, showing that which transactions which are above or below this. Okay, let's continue now in this 262-bit, which should be the 12th one. Which of the following is not an inherent limitation of the audit? So in the audit thing, when we see what are the inherent limitations, like the capacity to do the audit is the time constraint, the resources, all these things place into matter. So the inherent limitations includes the nature of financial reporting, the nature of audit procedure, the fraud detection, which involves management, but it does not include the internal control thing. The nature of internal control cannot be an inherent limitation for the audit. Then the next one, the major activities of top management and the information system management controls include which of the following? First one, planning, organizing, leading and directing. Okay. Second, planning, organizing, leading and controlling. Third, planning, organizing, leading and safeguarding. Planning, organizing, leading and managing. So the first three, planning, organizing, leading, will be the common for all the four. But what is among the four which is relevant for the activity done by top management and information system management? So what do they do? The direction is a part of it, but it is not only done by them. Direction can be done even by a committee appointed by them. Then comes controlling, then comes safeguarding, and then comes managing. So managing is done by the middle level. So top management is on the above. They try to provide the direction and give most part they try to do the controlling thing. So in the all the four available options, planning, organizing, leading and controlling is the major activity. It is one of the major activity done by top management and information system management control. Next, Dash discusses the major function that quality assurance management should perform to ensure that development, implementation, operation and maintenance of information system to conform the quality standard. So what is the major function of the quality assurance management? So in quality assurance management, what do they do primarily? What is the major function? Quality assurance management control. Which of the following four discusses that major function? Quality assurance management control, security management control, operations management control and programming management control. So to know about the quality assurance management and what things to do, what to follow is discussed in the quality assurance management controls. Then Dash controls maintain a chronology of the event. This is one of the important questions, please observe. Dash controls maintain a chronology of the events from the time a sender dispatches a message to the time a receiver obtains the message. So which among the following? That's communication control, input control, boundary control and database control. So communication control is the control which sees the chronology of the event. There's a time from when the sender dispatched the message to time when the receiver received it. Input control deals with the restrictions regarding input of the information. Then boundary control sees the accessibility to the system, and database control the accessibility to database and its maintenance. So communication controls, it maintains the chronology of the event between sender and the receiver. Okay, this because it gave chronology of the events. Don't just go to boundary control. Boundary control will deal with the accessibility issues. Then which of the following is not a major objective of the information system auditing? We have just covered in the few minutes back regarding the objectives of information system auditing, right? So which among the following four will not form part of the major objective of the information system auditing? Data integrity objective, it is one of the objective. System effectiveness, of course. System efficiency, both the ABC are the major objectives of the IS auditing. Then what is not? The data control objective is not the major objective. Then the set of skills that is generally expected to be with an IS auditor does not include the following. We have just covered almost 6 skill set required by an IS auditor. So what does not include? Knowledge of IT strategy, policy and pressure control. He must have knowledge of IT, so it is a must. Sound knowledge of his business operation. He must have a sound knowledge of how the business is being conducted. Ability to understand technical and manual controls related to the business continuity. Of course, he has to know what things are required for running the business. Then management to IT and enterprise architecture. He need not have a great understanding regarding the IT and the infrastructure of it. He needs only to have a sound knowledge of the business and the process and strategies there. So this one, management of IT and enterprise architecture, is not a skill set. Skill set expected from an IS auditor. Then Next one, scoping and pre-audit survey, field work, analysis, planning and preparation, reporting and closure. So these, when you read, you understand it is the steps in an IS audit. So mention the correct sequence. What is the sequence? First thing is scoping and pre-audit survey. So if you see A and B, among these two, one can be the answer. Now scoping and pre-audit survey, okay, then what will happen? Then comes planning and preparation, right? Scoping and pre-audit survey, then comes planning and preparation, then field work B, then analysis, reporting and closure. So A will form part of the answer. Okay, the dash is a fundamental attribute of IS auditing. So what is the important criteria of the information system auditing? First one, data integrity objective, yes, it is one of the objective. Other, safeguarding, system effectiveness, none of the above. It's a fundamental main important thing in the IS auditing. Among all the four will be data integrity objective. Next one, computers are designed to carry out processing on a consistent basis. Given the same input and programming, they invariably produce the same output. This is called as dash. So if you read, you can say we have popular term garbage in, garbage out. So what you give input, the same kind of output is going to come from the system. So what is the process? Like what you give is going to come out. The system processing will be on consistent basis. What is this called? Is it system generated transaction? No, it is not talking about generation of a transaction. It is talking about what you're given, it comes out there. It is not automated transaction processing. It is the definition is for systematic error, means there is a mistake in your input which is reflected in the output also. So the consistent basis of the result what you get is equivalent to what you give to the system there. So systematic error will form part of the answer. Okay, then dash is responsible for strategic planning and objective, thus setting the course in the lines of the business that the company will pursue. So who is responsible for the strategic planning? Whenever the term comes strategic planning, it will be the top level. So here we have the senior management. Okay, next, dash develops the tactical plan, activities and functions that accomplish the strategic objective. Again comes the same answer, which is the the three levels of management who plays a major role in developing the strategic plans and tactical plans. It is done by the senior man. Middle management just follows the given guidelines, and lower management implements the things set by the middle management, and trade union is for the entire lower people only. So the senior management who develop these plans. Then dash oversees and controls the day-to-day activities and functions of the tactical plan. So the above people who have done the major plan, who sees its implementation. So implementation is always done by the supervisory management or the mid, or you can say the next level people. So supervisory management oversees the controls of the daily activities and functions of tactical plan. So in generally you can get an case study in the exams describing the levels of management and the functions, and they may pull out one question, so asking which role is played by this management or what is done by this level of management there. So this will be helpful in that kind of answers. Okay, then the IS audit process is to evaluate the adequacy of internal controls with regard to both dash and to with both dash. So you have two kinds of you can say two kinds of adequacies to be taken care of. What is that thing? First thing, general purpose planning language, specific computer program, data processing environment, both B and C. So the audit process is to evaluate the adequacy of the internal control with regard to both specific computer program and data processing environment. Both B and C will form part of the answer. Then dash often is the accessor to the business risk as it relates to IT and to the management. So it is IS auditor is often seen as the, what is assessor? Assessor means the person who analyzes the risk. So IS auditor is the person who assesses the business risk as it relates to IT and the management. So IT team will not assess the risk. IT training will never do that. So it is only the auditor who does. Don't get carried away by seeing all the above. Okay. Okay, so let's see the next one. Missing or out of the date antivirus control, open ports, open system without password or weak password. See how many of the defects are there. There is outdated antivirus, the ports are very open where you can insert anything and take it off. There is a password leakage. So what all this reflect? This all reflect that there is some issue in the security control. So what is the thing here? These examples of what? These are examples of inadequate information security controls. Then dash audit to verify the processing facility is controlled to ensure timely, accurate and efficient processing of application under normal and potentially disruptive condition. So what is the audit done there? So we what audit is done to see that the facility is properly controlled, that the information processing facility is properly controlled and is providing efficient services. So it is not system development, it is not systems application, it is not management of IT enterprise architecture, it is the information processing facilities audit. So information processing facilities audit to verify that the processing facility is controlled to ensure timely, accurate and efficient processing of application under normally potential disruptive conditions. The next one. Dash step involves gathering of evidence by interviewing staff and managers, reviewing documents and observing process. So in what stage in the audit thing do you gather evidences? So you gather evidences in which stage? You gather in the all 6 stages, you gather evidence in the field work, right? In scoping and planning and analysis, you never gather any evidence. You gather the evidence in the field work category. Then dash step involves desperately sorting out, reviewing and trying to make sense of all evidence gathered. So you gathered everything, so what you're going to do, trying to analyze it, right? In analysis part, you try to sort out, you review, you try to make something sense out of the information gathered. Okay, so I think this is something a common knowledge kind of question. Then dash involves preparing notes for future audit and follow up with the management to complete the actions they promised to do after the previous audit. So the closure, it is the closure part. Reporting is into the management and to your authority, but the follow up one is done in the closure thing. So closure is a time where we follow up with the management for their promised set of actions. Then okay, then ISCA has dash audit number of auditing standards, guidelines and auditing procedure. So it has totally 16 standards and 39 guidelines and 11 procedures. Mostly they will not go this much deep, but it is better to know. Then what is the definition of COBIT? This should be a basic question, but still you can make a mistake in here too. So COBIT entire definition is COBIT stands for Control Objective for Information and Technology. It is not control objective for integration. It is not objective for technical stuff. Its complete definition is control objective for information and related technology. Yeah, your C is also says C. The I error, be careful. You may say, ma'am, C is same. No, C is coding objective. So just because information and technology is there, don't go for that answer. Read all the options slowly and then choose it. Dash is the international best practice and certification standard for information security management system. ISMS, the international, what is the international best practice for ISMS? It is international best standard is ISO 27001. ISCA as organization computers, a framework, IT set of practices. So standard and best practice certification is ISO 27001. Then a dash is a systematic approach to manage information security in an IS environment. It encompasses people, and process. So what encompasses people and process? It is information system management, information security management system. It is a systematic approach. Information security management system is a systematic approach to manage information security in an IS environment, and it encompasses people and process. Then dash provides management of the organization about the information technology management control, security and IS auditor with the guidance on the various information technology. So which among all the four: internal audit standards, global technology audit guide, auditing standards and accounting standards. So we need something which provides to the management regarding the information technology control and security, and also to the auditor which provides guidance on how to deal with the associated risk. So it is given for both people. It is catered by GTAG, Global Technology Audit Guide. I think this we have just covered in the theoretical part also. Then ITIL is published of dash of its core publication, each of which covers the ITSM life cycle. So how many publications are there? Totally 5 publications are there for the ITIL. Then depending upon the nature of audit, dash should also be used to audit the application. So depending upon the nature, what among the following audit techniques, verification techniques, computer assisted techniques, analyzing techniques, which techniques should also be used to audit the application? So application means system application, or you can say the electronic application. What you need to even include with the audit, we need to even include the computer assisted techniques to audit the application in the information system audit. Then the intensity and the extent of testing should be related to dash and the importance of application. So when you consider how to test or what to test, the intensity of testing should be based upon regularity, sensitivity, popularity and facility. Generally we do the testing to know how the system responds to each of the factors. So we see the sensitivity of the system there. Therefore the intensity and extent of testing should be based upon the sensitivity of the application. Then validation can be done in how many ways? Generally, if you can take all the above because this asks a number of ways, but still go through all the questions and then answer it. So validation can be done in how many number of ways? Asking different personnel the same question and comparing the answers, and asking the same question in different ways for different times. Similarly doing some CAD kind of work. Okay, then comparing checklist answers to work papers, documentation, comparing the results, conducting mini studies of critical phases of the operation. All these three cases, the validation of the process or validation of system can be done. Okay, so all the above will be the answer. If the video is fast, kindly go to the play folder, playlist speed, and reduce the speed there. Okay, then the dash of the audit environment enables the auditor to gain understanding of the business, technology, and control environment, and also gain clarity on the objectives of the audit. What will give him? If you can see the options: final review, interim review, preliminary review, and total review. So it is the initial stage where he will get total understanding of the business, the technology, and the environment, and also he will draft the scope and get clarity on the objectives of the audit. So it is the preliminary review of the audit environment. Okay, so let's once come back to the LDR. You have just seen this validation of information obtained in different ways. So how can auditor validate the information that he gets? He can ask different personnel the same question and compare the answers, or he can ask the same question in different ways. Then he can compare the checklist answers to the program documentation, test, and results, and he can compare the checklist to determine with the observations in the actual system and see what is the right answer there and what is the trend is followed. Then conducting mini case studies of critical phases. So for example, purchasing is the main aspect in the system development, so you can formulate a mini case study to see how the phase is being carried on in the organization. Then what are the various steps in the audit followed by the auditor? First thing, a basic plan. So you can say the basic plan is the primary preliminary review. We just seen the MCQ now. So it is a basic plan is the first stage of which he will get an idea of what to do, what to verify, and what is the total scope of the audit there. He will also identify the potential problems and try to align his work to address them. So what does planning help? Planning will help in proper assignment of work to the assistants, right? And it can also depends upon size of the entity. Proper coordination can be done with help of planning, but planning is a continuous iterative process, right? Then in the planning, as we just discussed, the auditor will get good knowledge of the business and he can plan with the management as to how to carry on the audit. Then the auditor should develop and document the overall audit plan and expected scope and conduct of the audit, which will form a guiding structure for him to start, continue, and end the audit in a smooth fashion. Then in what will happen in the preliminary review? In the preliminary review, he will able to understand many aspects like his understanding on the knowledge of the business, the technology into consideration, the internal control system of the organization, the legal consideration, the assessment of risk, and materiality. Okay, so what are the different kinds of risk that the auditor can classify in the entire organization? It can be inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk. So this risk categorization can come only when he goes through the preliminary review of the organization. Okay, in the knowledge of how can he get good knowledge of the business? By understanding the general economic factors affecting the industry of his client, nature of the business, general exposure to the business, the clientele vendor with which the organization is dealing with, the level of competence of top management understanding the business, and finally the organization and the structure of the IT department. Then how come understanding technology help him? Understand technology will help him to analyze the business process. It will understand, this can form part of an answer for you. Okay, so he can understand the extent of dependence of the IT on the business on the IT, understand the technology architecture through which the system, the entire organization is being formulated. So architecture is a centralized one or is a distributed one. And then he can study the network diagram to see the physical and logical connectivity of systems in the organization. Then understanding external enterprise architecture, wherein the organizations can connect seamlessly to the other stakeholders and vendors. So this understand technology will also help him to see the critical competence required from him to serve the organization, and also he can understand what kind of technology policies and standards can be applied for the audit. Then understand the internal control system. How does this help him? It will help him in developing the test to be conducted on the samples to be taken. Then legal consideration audit standards he does follow for the audit, so that he understand and carefully see what are the legal and statutory requirements required for audit work, right? And then he also sees the required Did he take the required considerations into his account while determining the audit? Depending upon the legal requirement, he can formulate the audit part for that, and he can also see what are the regulatory frameworks imposed on the organization and are these people following them properly. So he must be aware of those legal frameworks, and he should also be responsible for the performance of the audit because by applying the audit standards given to him by the institute. So that's why analyzing the legal consideration for the organization is very important on the part of the auditor. Then comes risk assessment and materiality. So risk assessment is a critical and inherent part of the information system or plan, right? So it will help him in analyzing, identifying the risk, assessing the risk, and recommending the controls to reduce the risk to an acceptable level, right? By considering both the probability of occurrence and impact of the risk, the auditor will suggest the acceptable measures to reduce it. Then, what are the steps to be followed? The steps to be followed for risk-based approach to make an audit plan. So, to make an audit plan for which is based upon the risk approach, to means depending upon the category of the risk, analysis of the risk of the organization, how can you formulate a plan? First try to make inventory of the information system used in the organization, means what kind of systems are being used in the organization, and make a list of it. So is it related to the management, is it related to the inventory, what kind of, make a list of those kind of system. Then determine what is the impact on the critical function by these systems and what time do they operate. Then what is the kind of risk affected to these systems and how the impact of risk can affect the working of these systems. Based upon the above assessment, then do the audit prioritization of the resource, schedule and frequency, and then he can conduct the audit. That's the reason it's very important for the auditor to assess the risk. Then yeah, so what is, when he assesses the risk, what can he do? He can assess the he can assess the inherent control detection risk, set materiality levels for all audit purpose, and then see the possibility for the vulnerability and take action accordingly. So what is inherent risk? It is a susceptibility of the information resource or resource controlled by the information system that it is susceptibility to a material theft, destruction, or other modification, and provided that there are no integrated internal controls to it. So if auditor concludes that there is a high exposure of regarding the risk of ignoring the internal controls, and auditor will conclude that internal risk is very high. Then what about the control risk? Control risk is the risk that occur in an audit area which could materially include a combination of one or more errors, and it is not prevented, detected, or corrected on timely basis by the internal control system. So the controls are not able to identify that. But when it comes to detection risk, it is a kind of risk which the internal controls can identify, and then suitable measures can be done to reduce or totally eliminate it also. Then okay, coming to IS audit and audit evidence. So we have essay 230, audit documentation, that it is a record of audit procedures performed, relevant evidence is obtained, and conclusions thereof concluded by the auditor in the IS audit. So why do we need the evidences for? We need the evidence for as a means of current audit work done. So evidence will show that we have the audit work done by us. Then it will also show as a method of control that what are the kinds of situations happen, what we have done, what steps we have taken. Then schedules or supporting additional items in the accounts will help act as an evidence to know the inputs that went into the audit thing. Then information about the business being audited is included as a part of evidence to show that the most recent history of the organization is captured in the audit process. Okay, then this can be a 2 marks question. What can be a continuous audit? So continuous audit enables the auditor to significantly reduce what? It can reduce or eliminate the difference of time between the occurrence of an event and the audit work done. So continuous audit helps us to eliminate the time gap between occurrence of an event and the audit assessment of that event. So it can say a certain, it can eliminate, it can create even a kind of. So continuous audit technique uses two bases for collecting evidence. Like you can say, one it is one it is the embedded modules that which is kept in the system to collect the evidence, and then it is going to print the audit evidence on special records so it can be checked by the auditor. So continuous audit, you can say the auditor will be available on the in the system in the organization on day-to-day basis, so that he can see when the event occurs and he can take suitable actions accordingly. Okay, then what are the types of tools we have just seen in the last example? Is snapshot, integrate test facilities, system control, audit review file, continuous intermediate situations, and then we have audit hooks. Here if you see what is snapshot, snapshot means a transaction is when it flows through a computer system, we try to take the get the pictures of the transaction being processed into a system at particular points. The images will help us to show how the uh, transaction being processed in application. Then comes integrate test facility. It is system which involves creation of dummy entity in the application system. So we try to introduce a dummy entity and see how the transactions are processed through the dummy entity, which will give us to get an understanding of the original processing of the transaction. Then system control audit review file. What will happen here? The scarf technique involves, again we are keeping an audit software module within the host system, so it provides continuous monitoring of transaction. So what happens when we keep a separate software to monitor the transaction, it will collect the data and keep into special file called a scarf file. The auditor will use scarf file to find and determine different kind of errors occurred in system. So we can collect different kinds of information using scarf. What different of information can we collect? We can collect application system error, policy procedure variation, system exception, statistical sample, snapshot extended records, profiling data, and performance measurement. So these are the different types of data or information collected by the auto using scarf technique. Then comes continuous intermediate simulation. So it is also a kind of variation of scarf technique. The thing is that the exceptions the system this technique can be used to trap exceptions whenever the application uses a database management system. So when this application generally targeted to a DBMS database management, wherever there are exceptions which is against the needed coded path, which is against the database standard, these exceptions can be trapped. Okay, so how does CS executes? The database system generally reads the application system transaction. It passes to the CIS. CIS then determines whether it wants to examine further or not. Then what does it do? It replicates the application system processing and update the database, and every update in database goes to CIS to determine if it is right or not. If there is any exception, it will be taken to log file, and log file is that get taken to the auditor for verifying. If there is no exception when the system is being processed, it goes to database and gets saved there. The advantage is that it does not require any modification to the application system. So everything goes to database. From database, when it tries to enter, it goes to CIS, get processed. If it's okay, it goes back to database. If it's not okay, it goes to the log file for verification. Then what are the benefits of this thing? It reduces the cost of basic audit assignment because everything is being processed and instantaneously whenever it is entered. It reduces the amount of time and cost involved by the auditor. It increases the quality of the audit, and specific transactions by certain criteria we can perform both the test of control and test of details in order to verify those transactions. Then what are the advantages of CIS? It is timely done, it's comprehensive and detailed because everything can be done on a continuous basis. Then suppress test capability, information to the system staff on meeting the objective or not, and training to new users. So new users can be trained properly what to do, what not to do. But what are the disadvantages? Everything has two sides of a coin. So what are the disadvantages to do this continuous intermediate simulation? This is a 4 marks answer. You must obtain resources from the management, like the organization must provide the people, the database, and everything there. It is useful only when the audit is involved in development work. So when we need to check only when there is a verification done. So the auditor who needs the verification to be done, not the management. So if unless until the auditor is there is no need for this CIS, and it needs knowledge and experience to work with the computer. And when the auditor is less visible, the cost of errors will be very high. So this will be very disadvantage if there is a less audit trail, and it is not effectively implemented if there is no stable application system. So these are the disadvantages of CIS. Then what is audit trail? Audit trail are the logs that can be designed to record activity at a system application and the user level. When properly implemented, audit trail provides important directive control to help accomplish security objectives. So what does the audit trail help to do? Try to maintain chronology of the events and events that occurred in the data in the system. So this record is required to have answers. Okay, fulfill starter needs. Like example, just now the MCA said that the audit trail must be available for the organizations, right? And detect the errors and sequence of flow in the information system. Then application system controls involve ensure individual application system safeguards. So what does this audit trail help us? Help us in trying to rebuild the data, right? Maintain data integrity, achieve system objective, rebuild the data if there is a destruction in system. Then what are the audit trail objective? Audit trail objective is to direct another's access to system, facilitate reconstruction of events and promoting personal accountability, deleting unauthorized access to system. Okay, then facilitating reconstruction of events and promoting personal accountability. Then yeah, okay, so let's continue. So what is the role of IS auditor in environmental controls? Because environmental controls is where the environmental system is actually there. So what are the things which he must take care of? First thing, he has to see that the risk profile of the organization information system is available. Does it having proper protocols of environmental risk or not? So then the control assessment must see if the control safeguards in the organization cover all acceptable risk. Then what is security policy and should be checked at frequent intervals. Then building plans should be reviewed constantly, and the IS auditor should interview the personnel to satisfy himself that everybody is aware about the environmental threat to the information systems. And then administrative procedures should be effective in place to have a preventive maintenance plan. Its implementation and its reporting must be reviewed. Then what are the points to be taken care by the auditor while auditing the environmental controls? He has to see that the infrastructure planning and facilities and the construction with regard to type of material used for the construction, the presence of water and smoke detectors in the and other devices in the location. Then and where they're located, where the fire extinguisher and water equipments are properly located, and the emergency protocol drills, are they being followed or not. Then are we documenting the compliance and regulatory requirements regarding to fire safety and everything. Then power sources must be checked to assure the quality power, and power conducting equipment must also be verified to know what is the kind of machines equipment they are being using. Then environmental control equipment like air conditioner, humidifier, etc. must also be taken care of. So yes, the power sources, he has to see whether the power source and test conducted to see if the power sources are properly maintained, what is the effectiveness of the power conducting equipment in that area. Okay, then also the environmental control equipment, control air conditioning facilities, because if the AC is there, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work, right? It matters if it works wrong. So that is the thing which we need to take care of. Then comes compliance log as to who is accessing what, who is giving, who has been given the access to see the maintenance details, what is the mean time between the failures, between one failure of system to another failure, what is the gap between them, and what is the time taken to repair. So that will give him a fair estimate of how the things are being done in the organization, and also identify the undesired activity in the IT system place, like example smoking, eating, etc., so that you can place proper controls on them. Okay, then now comes the most important topic of chapter number 6, that is application control and the audit trail. So here we have a lot of controls which is available in the IT system, which will for which an audit trail is required. Like we have boundary controls, like it is used for seeing who is accessing the system. Input control used for seeing what is being given as input to the system. Communication control is responsible for seeing how, where, and what things are being communicated, how they are communicated, how the communication flow is being maintained and protected. Okay, what is the architecture of communication, etc. Then come processing controls, like it shows what is the chronology of the event from when once you receive the data, what's happening in the system, and what will happen till the output is going out. So what is the process in the system. Then comes database controls, like defining what is data, what is database, who is access to see the data, who is responsible for maintaining the data, and what are the set of operations performed to do the database in an updation mode. So all these are controls in database control. Then comes output control. Output control determines the data content available to the user, so which format is going at what time they are being received, at who is giving the output, etc., are taken care of by the output control. Okay, but why we need this, what kind of audit trails we need? First we need audit trail because it helps us to see what all events have happened in the organization, right? So we have again here a few minutes back we have just seen what is the importance of audit trail. We can see that directing unauthorized access to a system, facilitating reconstruction of events, and promoting personal accountability. Okay, so what are the different types of audit trail? We have two types. First thing is accounting audit trail, which will record the events of a subsystem. Okay, then comes operation audit trail, which will record the consumption of a particular resource. Means accounting audit trail will show what is the event occurring in the system, and operation audit trail will show in that event what are the resources being used. Okay, so let us see one by one now. This is very important, my friends. It may come for 4 marks at least one particular control. So you must not get confused with these controls in if it is with any other chapter. Okay, even similar concepts you can find in chapter 3 and chapter 5, but you must be very careful as to what you are writing in the answer. That's why you need to revise the side headings always. So what is boundary control? This maintains the chronology of events that occur in the system. Like whenever the user tries to come into the system and gain the access, who is coming into the system, is he having necessary authority to access system, what are the access codes, etc. are maintained, are the logs are being created in that. This is called boundary control. So what are taken care in that? So what are the events that taken care in the boundary control? First thing, identity of the would be user system. So who is using the system? Authentication of information supplied, is the given information by the user and the information in the computer memory, are they matching or not? The resource requested, what are the things he's asking for? Action provided this requested, means does he has the eligibility to ask for the actions which he is asking. Suppose example is trying to ask for MIS report and he is a senior manager, yes, he has authority, right? Then terminal identify, from where he is accessing, is it from his office or from which computer he is accessing it? Then start and finish time, when he has started the operation, when he is finishing it, when he is logging out. Number of sign-on attempts, suppose he forgot his password or is a wrong user, so how many times he is trying to enter into the system. The resources provided or denied, what he asked and what has been provided, if there's a log is being maintained. So these things are taken in boundary control, because the things here is the first stage where the user is trying to get access to system. Then comes accounting in the boundary control. What is accounting audit trail? Accounting audit trail means what is the event happening, action provided is allowed or denied, it is the event. What is the resource being used in the operation audit trail? Resource usage from log on time to log out time. Length means what he is accessing, like he is asking an Excel sheet, he is asking a printout, is asking a file to be sent, what he is using. The log of resource consumption means what all he has used, how many prints he have taken, how many times he has logged into some other website. So those things are the operation audit trail. Then next comes the input control. So what is input control? Input control helps you to maintain the chronology of the event from the time the data or instructions is captured into the system and entered in the application system. So when you're giving some input into the information system, so this control sees what you're giving, okay, and what is being taken into the application system. So you get a log of what is being entered. So what is accounting trail here? What is the event you're being capturing? You're seeing the identity of the person who entered the data. So who is the person who entered the, is it a clerk or is it a manager? Who is doing that? The time and date when the data is captured, you're capturing the event. What is the time and date when it was entered? Then identify the physical device used to enter system. Is it a mobile phone or is it a desktop, or is it within the organization, or is it outside, from where the place it was, the system was used, the physical system was used to enter the data. Then the account and record to be updated by the transaction. Because of this transaction, what accounts are being affected? The standing data to be updated by the transaction, means any data which is being pending to be updated. So this is it affecting that. The details of transaction, what is being entered, the number of physical or logical batch to which transaction belongs to, because everything in the system processes through in a batch mode, right? So is it being taken, which mode is taken? Is it taken in the logical batch to get ready to transmit for processing, or what is the way in which the data is being, the transaction is being taken into the batches? So this is taken care in the accounting audit trail of the input control. Then comes operation audit trail. What in operation, what you are seeing, the resource consumption, right? So the time here we see the resource in the input is the application being used, and also the time taken for its input. So we see the time to key in a source document or an instrument, the terminal. So how much time it taken to enter the data. Then number of read errors made by optical scanning device. Suppose if you're doing an you're using a scanner to scan the device, how many times it took a wrong data even though it is given correctly. The number of keying errors identified during verification, means when you're trying to verify how many times you found a clerk entering in a wrong way. Then frequency with which instruction or command language is used. Suppose if you're using any particular command language to give instructions, how many times you're using that language. And time taken to invoke an instrument using pen, light versus mouse. Suppose you're using a touchscreen kind of thing, so what is the time gap if you use the same application through a mouse and if you use same application to touch screen. So this is the resource consumption part of the input controls. Okay, then comes communication control. Here always focus, students, whenever you're studying, when you get confused, just remember what you're studying. Audit, you're studying the audit chapter number 6, dealing with the audit trails. So in audit trails, what you do, you see who is using and how they're using. So and what is actually happening. What is happening is taken care in the accounting audit trail. What resource being consumed is taken care in the operation audit trail. Accordingly you can modify your answer, but if you understand and study, you will remember it well in the examination. Okay, Then comes communication control. So what does communication control do? It is a chronology of the event from the time a sender dispatches a message and time receiver receives it. So what is the time gap between sender and the receiver? So what is accounting audit trail? What are the event happening here? We see the unique identifier of the source or sync node from where it is being coming. Unique identifier of each node in the network that transfers the message. Because if you remember, I think somewhere long time back we might have studied in maybe in our ISCA only, that information gets transmitted in the form of packets in the internet, right? So we see from which network and which how many networks does the information pass before coming to the receiver end. The unique identifier of the person who processes the authorizing of dispatch of the message, and what is the time and date of dispatch. This is the accounting trail. And in the accounting trail, in the event category, we also see the time and date with the message is received. So sending time and date is important, receiving time is also important. And also we see the time and date in which the network was transferred by the message, means how many, what all nodes and networks did it cross, and how at what time and date did each node did the message cross before coming to the receiver. Then message sequence number and the image of the message received at the each node in the network. So whenever each node receives it, it is an input for each node, so it will give a record number for that. So what is the message sequence number on each node? That is taken care in the accounting audit trail. Then comes operation audit trail. Here we see in the resource consumption, we see number of messages that have been transferred from each link and node. So from each node link in network, how many messages in each day or each minute have been passed. Then queue length at each node. Before passing the message from a particular node in the internet, there will be a length queue before the node for many messages. So what is the queue length in each node? A number of errors occurred on each link at each node. So we, because there is a resource consumption, we see what is the effect of each link in the network. So we see number of queues before that, what is the errors happened to it, a number of retransmissions have occurred from that node. And then we see log of errors to identify location pattern of errors. If there is a continuous error, continuous cut down of the, you can say, there is always a blockage of information, there is always some part of information missing from a particular link. So we see what is the type of error and what is the pattern of error. Then we see log of system restart, so how many times and what is the event from which system is restarting always. Then message transmit time between node and each node. So we just till now we saw in the accounting audit trail that what is the time between the communication sender and the receiver. In the operation resource node, we see what is the time between the communication of message between two nodes. So this is regarding communication control. Okay, then comes processing control. In this audit trail, we maintain a chronology of the events that shows the time from which data or input is received and the communication received from subsystem, and the time which data is dispatched to the database or to the communication system. So we see the what happens in between data is received and data is sent, what happens in between them, that event is being calculated in the audit trail. So here what is happening in the accounting audit trail, we trace and replicate processing performed on particular data. So what is accounting audit trail? The event happening here. What is the event happening in the processing control? We see the information being processed, so we trace and replicate the processing performed on data item. Trigger transaction to monitor input data entry, intermediate result and output data value. Then what is the operation audit trail? A comprehensive log on here. Operation means we use the resource consumption. So in the processing, we see what is the comprehensive log of software consumption, hardware consumption. Software includes CPU time use, storage space use, etc. Software includes compilers, libraries, file management, etc. This comes regarding the processing control. Then comes database control. Database control, in this audit trail, we made a chronology of the event every event that happens to a database. So here what is the event that we are trying to capture? We see the unique timestamp of all the transactions. So every transaction, what time is being captured. Then we attach the before and after image of data in the database. Okay, before when it entered, what was it look like, and after when it's going dispatching to the output control, what is the form of the data. Then any modification to the or correction to the database in the audit trail must see if the corrections in the audit trail transaction accommodate all the changes that occur in the application system. So in the database, any modification happens, the audit trail we should capture all the changes that have happened to the system there. Then comes operation audit trail. What is the resource consumption here? We see the the how the event of the resource consumption, the data being used, the data storage, the data alignment, all this data modification, how the resource in the database is being affected, is taken care by the operation audit trail. Means what all the sequence has happened in the database, in the what I just don't get confused here, in the accounting audit trail we see what event has happened that affected the data and database. In the operation audit trail we'll see how the data in the database is being affected. So we in this operational detail we maintain the sequence of things that happen because of the data and the consumption of the data or database because of changes that occurred till now in the database. Okay, so in accounting detail we see event happen like stamping of the data when it came, what form it came, what form it left, what are the modification happened. In operational detail for those modifications what things have been used. So we said to maintain a chronology of the resource consumption event that affects the database definition or the database. Okay, so just don't worry if you don't understand this, if you don't remember these lines, just you can write saying that in the operation auditor we maintain a chronology of the events regarding resource consumption for the event that affected the database. Okay, then comes output control. The auditor maintains chronology of the event that occur from the time the content of the output is determined until the time the user gets complete disposal of the output. Means from time the output, this is the output is determined by system, till the time the user gets an output. Here what are the events were happening, we see what is the output given to the user, who received the output, when the output was received, and what actions were taken with the output. Okay, in operation auditor what is the resource consumed in making the output, like graphs used, report pages prepared, printing time taken, number of pages printed, display rate of the various outputs, etc. is taken care in the operating system. Okay, then if you see here, okay, there are some things which you need to refer before you go to the last 10 MCQs. Okay, here we are going to see what is the application approach to the application security audit. So what is application security? Application means the system being used. So app, what we call is from the application. So every organization has their own application. It can be web based or it can be mobile based, Android or iOS versions. So application security audit is being looked, we generally see the application as a term which the user generally use it. So a layered approach is used. So what is layered approach? Means every level, at what level each type of management or the employees are taken care or in using that or developing that application. This layered approach is undertaken while you are doing the audit of application security. Okay, so a layered approach is being used on the functions and the approach of each layer. Layered approach is based on the activities being undertaken at each levels of management. So the auditor, in order to understand what is the application being used, how is it being used, how is it being developed, he must have a clear understanding of the following. First thing, business process for which application is designed. Just like audit, you must have understanding of the preliminary investigation, you must have understanding of the business process to know for what the app is being designed, the source of data input input to an output from application, the various interfaces of the application under audit with other application, the various methods that may be used to log in to application other than normal user ID and password that are being used, including design subset control. So he has to see for what the app is being developed, what is the source of data and input for it, what are the various interferences of the application under audit with other applications. So how does it interact, so how does it communicate with Facebook, how does it communicate with WhatsApp, so those things there. And the various methods used to log in the application, means is it compulsory to log in from the web only, or is it from the app with login ID and password, or even Google login is available, what is the method used to log in the application, the normal user ID and password used are also taken under control. Then the roles, descriptions, user profile, user group, etc. who has created the application must be known to the auditor. Means who is preparing what in the application system, who is the developer, who is the manager, who is the database controller. So he must have an idea of the roles and user profile of those people, and also he must know the policy of the organization for user access and supporting standards. So what is the organization policy regarding the user access to system. Then comes this, we just told that application controls must be taken. Application control audit happens in layered manner, right? So we just now we understood why he needs to, what all he needs to know before he goes into the application security audit. That's fine, but to review the application security, he follows a layered approach. In that layered approach, what are the three levels of layer applicable for the management? We have operational layer, transitional layer, and strategic layer. Operational layer is a basic layer where the decisions are generally taken into action. When tacit layer is the management layer, where it takes the goals of the organization of the top management, communicates to the bottom people to get the work done, and it includes supporting functions like security, administration, IT, risk management, etc. Then comes strategic layer, is the top management. It takes overall information into consideration and prepares the standard policy procedures, and they have the entire control over the application security development. So these three levels must be taken care by the auditor in knowing who does what. Okay, then in operational layer, what does it take? This is important of all the three. So what does it take care? He see which aspect does the auditor see in the three layers. In operational audit, he sees user accounts and access right, who is the user in the system and how he is using it. Then password control and segregation of duty, because whenever the application is being prepared, it is not that it is only prepared for the external users, it can also be prepared for the internal users to do the work in the management. Like if you have seen many companies, they have their own internal ERPs, they have their own website in which they coordinate with the other employees, other members in the various parts of the country or the world. So here in the operational layer, the auditor will see if the user accounts and password are and access rates are being properly defined. What is the password control? Like 90 days is the password getting changed. Segregation of duty. In chapter number 3, you will get to understand what is segregation of duty and examples. Please refer that chapter. Is available in the playlist. Then come tacit layer. In tacit layer, he sees the timely update user profile. Is a middle management, are they creating, deleting the changes accordingly to the needs of the organization? Are the update in the user profile based upon the changes? Are they properly taking care of the IT risk management? How is the security interface being developed? What is the audit logging and monitoring? So how is the audit trail is being focused? So every time it is not okay if you maintain or develop a system, you must maintain it and you must update it. So you need to have a good audit means you can say a good review capacity always to the tactical layer. Then comes strategic layer. See, audit doesn't mean only auditor, even the internal management has their own internal audit to see how the information system is functioning. Then comes strategic layer. Because strategic layer is the top management, comprehensively they prepare standards, policy and program. So top management, the auditor must see how well the communication of the top management is with the middle and the bottom. Because of the inputs given by the last two layers, only the top one can make a decision, right? It is not sufficient only if they take a decision. Now must involve even these people consideration into action to develop a proper policy and standard. Therefore, he sees if the policy security policy developed by the organization is supported and implemented with the detailed standards. Are they developing policies? Are they developing standards? Are they having a rapport with these two levels to take inputs? And they are trying to understand the level of security for each kind of application before they have been implemented. So depending upon these key controls, the auditor will try to assess the risk and find the failure or weakness in the system, and then accordingly he will continue the audit and give his opinion there. So these are the things taken care by the auditor in the application security audit. So overall, if we see the auditor has a comprehensive work to taken care of. He uses various tools, he uses various techniques, he focuses on various controls to see if everything is going right. And then if he asks for a particular audit for only for application security audit, he takes care of these things there. Okay, so application doesn't mean only app, but it means a kind of a process established in the organization specific to that organization only. So that thing, if he has to review, he does all these things and keep an eye on the management there. So this is what my friends, for the audit, let us come to the last 10 bits now. Analysis of the business process and level of automation, studying network diagrams to understand the physical and logical network connectivity, studying information technology policies, standard guidelines and procedure. All this comes under which stage of preliminary review. In preliminary review, you have many stages, right? We have understand technology, knowledge of the business, legal consideration, audit standards. Where does this come? This comes under understand technology, because you're trying to understand at what level the enterprise is dependent on the technology. Then dash is a critical and inherent part of the information system auditor's planning and implementation. So in the planning implementation, what is the critical path? He takes care of audit assessment, risk assessment, control assessment, technical assessment. No, auditor generally while planning, he takes care of the risk assessment. Then risk assessment allows the auditor to determine the scope of audit and assess the level of audit risk. And what does he allow to risk? The risk assessment in the IT audit will help the auditor to assess the level of audit risk, and it allows to have an error risk, because fraud risk we can't estimate that, we can only take precautions. Technical risk can be understood after going to all the points in-depthly. Then comes country risk, it is not in his hands, but risk assessment in the audit, in the scope of audit, will help him to only find error, where are the places where error can happen. Then risk assessment will aid in planning decisions such as in what level the risk assessment will help. Will it help in nature, even extent of timing of all audit procedure? Yes. The area or business function to be audited? Yes. The amount of time and resource to be allocated to each audit? Yes. So all A, B and D will be the answer. Risk assessment help in this all three. Okay. Arrange the steps that can be followed for risk-based approach to make audit plan. I think this should be easy for you. Okay, let us see. Inventory of information system. In the preparing audit plan, what steps you need to follow? Inventory of the information system used in the organization and categorize them. Of course, without categorization, you can't start a risk-based approach. Then, based upon the above assessment, decide the audit priority, resource, schedule, frequency. Assess what risk affects the system with the severity of impact. Determine which of system impact critical function assets such as money, material, customer, decision making, and how close in real time do they operate. So first thing he is saying inventory. Yeah, first one. If I choose what should be the first one. First one should be the first bit, inventory of the information system used in the organization and categorize. You need to categorize them. Once you categorize inventory system, you may get confused between 2 and 4. Let us see what is 2. Based upon the above assessment, decide the audit priority. In the above thing, we just categorize them. We don't do any assessment there. But in fourth one, determine which of the system impact critical function of the or assets such as money, material, customer, decision making, and how close to real time they operate. Yes, fourth will the answer. Why? In the first one, we are classifying the inventory information system, and based upon the classification, we see which system is affecting the critical functions of the organization. So first we inventory the system, then we categorize the impact on the critical functions of the organization. Based upon the categorization and the effect of the critical function, that is assessment. That assessment we do, like what is the impact on the critical function. Based upon that assessment, we decide. Okay, based upon that assessment, we see what is the risk affected by the organization, right? Based upon the above assessment means the fourth one. We see the severity of impact on the business, and then we decide audit priority. So first one will be inventory of information system. Second will be determine in the system which will affect the critical functions. Based upon the effect on critical functions, we see what is the risk that which affect the system and severity of the impact, because now we know which functions will affect the critical system. Okay, if these functions affect the critical system, what is the risk faced by them and what is severity of the risk, and based upon severity of the risk, we decide the audit priority. So 1, 4, 3 and 2. Okay, so first inventory, and then see impact, critical impact on the set. They bring upon the impact, see the risk faced and the severity of impact on the function, and then decide audit priority. Then comes dash is the measure of the auditor's assessment that there may or may not be material vulnerability or gaps in the audit subject, exposing it to a high risk before considering the effect of internal control. So and the technical thing, if you see slowly, what is the measure of the auditor's assessment? So it is talking about something of an auditor's assessment that there may or may not be any material gaps or vulnerability in the audit, subject it to exposing high risk before considering internal control. So before considering internal controls in the organization, auditor is trying to understand that there may not be any material gap in the audit subject. So the auditor is thinking that we are not still gone into the controls of the organization, but I think that there may not be much difference or much gap of risk in the audit thing that we are going to do. So that thing is called as inherent risk, because inherent risk is something which is there in the organization even if you don't go to the internal control, and there we try to understand that the gaps or the vulnerability may or may not exist on the audit thing, and we can't assess it at the first place before going into internal control. So it is inherent risk. Then comes dash are ignored in setting inherent risk because they are considered separately in the audit risk and audit risk model as control risk. So here we say that I think some of the answers see dash are ignored in setting inherent risk. So you can say inherent risk is only ignored while you are setting the risk considered in audit risk model or control risk. You can say, I see, don't get confused here. What he's trying to say is that inherent risk is something which is by default there in the organization, right? So this is somewhat slightly ignored by the auditor, because in general while you're preparing the audit risk model, audit risk framework, you check the controls available in the organization, what risk they are facing. So when you're trying to look at the controls, so by default indirectly you're trying to even see the inherent risk faced by the organization because of lack of controls. So automatically inherent risk is covered in the audit risk model in the name of control risk. Okay, then dash is a measure of the auditor's assessment of the likelihood that the risk exceeding a tolerable level and will not be prevented or directed by client's internal control system. So this is generally, I think it has been repeated. So what he's saying, this, what is the measure? So what in among these risks, what is that among the four? The auditors, in the audit assessment, he will say that if the risk goes beyond a tolerable level, it cannot be prevented or directed in the client's internal control system. So it is the control risk. So control risk is the thing where the in the audit assessment, that with exceeding a tolerable level, it cannot be prevented or directed by the client's internal control system. Okay, then the dash risk associated with identifying breaches of security in application system is ordinarily high because logs for a whole period of audit are not available at that point of time. You can say it is reduction risk, means for a particular time the audit logs were not available. Maybe it was not being captured or not being installed, or they were deleted. Something happened for a particular time. You don't have any audit trail, so you cannot know what risk is faced by the organization in that period for which logs are missing. So there is a detection risk. They fail to detect any breaches because audit logs were not there. Then auditors dash are to record and demonstrate audit work from one year to another. It's an audit working paper. Working paper is something which auditor uses to know what work has been done from one place to another, 1 year to another year. So this is regarding the chapter number 6, my friends. There's one thing which I want to revise before closing this thing off. Yeah, just a minute, I'm trying to scroll up. Yeah, this comes. What is the difference between inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk? Let us once read it again. Inherent risk is the susceptibility of the information resources or resources controlled by the information system to material theft. Means the information system or the resources controlled by the information system are subject to material theft, disclosure, unauthorized modification, or anything which is assuming that there are no internal controls. Means the resource which are used by the information system or the information system itself, if there are no related internal controls on that, they are high chances of theft or misutilization. Okay, suppose for example there is a high likelihood of risk exposure on a particular topic. If the auditor thinks that ignoring internal control, that if there is no proper control on the usage of the, let us say, sales data, it can be sold off to anyone, right? So auditor will conclude that there is inherent risk is high. So any person will try to monetize the amount by selling that data, right? Then what is control risk? Control risk is the risk that could occur in audit area and which could be material. Means it is very important that if the risk gets manifested, it can affect the organization as a whole also. Either it can be one risk or it can be combined with many other risk in the organization. It can be a very big one which materially affects the organization, and it cannot be prevented, directed, or corrected in timely manner with the internal control system. Means if after it occurs, then you'll understand that the internal control system failed to stop it. So the control risk is a measure. What is a measure? It is a measure of auditor's assessment that the likelihood that the risk exceeds tolerable level will not be prevented or directed by the client's internal control system. For example, you can say in the control risk, for example, if he thinks that there is continuous request for change of address from many people at a particular point of time, maybe in the month of March. So after a certain inputs, the system will not understand if there is real change of request for changing the address in the system, or if it has been deliberately given by many people in order to do something wrong to the organization. So it is auditor's assessment that this error, which is very powerful, very impactful, once it crosses a particular once it crosses a particular limit, the internal control system cannot detect it. There is control risk. And what detection risk? Detection risk is a risk that IT or that it is again auditor's substantive procedure will not detect an error. Here is not talking about internal control. Here the auditor will use certain techniques to find the risk faced by the organization at particular points of time. So the auditor's procedure will not detect that risk. It can be individual risk or combined that the auditor cannot detect it. For example, let us take a cashier is also is different from person who is writing the lectures, right? Who's posting the entries there. But if suppose it so happen that sometimes maybe in a week or so the cashier only taking the role of the person posting it because he's on leave, something like that of that sort. So it is the controls cannot avoid him. So auditor cannot always keep on looking at which point of time in the year that cashier is taking care of the system there. It can happen any point of time. So the auditor substantive procedure will not detect an error which could be material individually or combination of other errors. Here is the method used by the auditor is not sufficient. The deduction risk associated with the lack of identification of disaster recovery plan is ordinarily low because exists. For example, the auditor will know that every company will have an insurance and a backup plan. So normally his thinking that it will not exist is generally not happen. It can be assumed there. But if he does not ask, if he does not verify if the plan is there or not, and sudden disaster happens, it will be his fault that his method did not detect that non-availability of the BCP plan in the organization. So these are the examples of the detection risk. So this is the small revision of inherent control and detection risk, my friends. So I hope you have completed this chapter 6 in a good manner. Yes, the video has been done in parts. I know certain setbacks at my place here, but I try to do a long video for this 7th and 8th upcoming chapter. So till then, keep studying, revise the practice manual, and once you do your revision from this fast track 1 hour video of chapter number 6 and practice manual, please write answers. Writing on and revising side headings only will help you to get good marks in ISCA. Okay, so till then, let's meet in next video. Take care, happy studies.